we welcome our guest, Governor Sisolak, with us today. We're so happy, Governor, that you could join us. We have a record number of people on this call today, upwards of 1,000, maxing out the line today. So we appreciate everybody's engagement and participation in our webinar. Chairman Burns is going to introduce the governor in just a moment, but first I'd like to really commend you, Governor Sisolak, on your driving passion to keep Nevadans safe and to keep this curve as flat as possible in an effort to keep us from overwhelming all of our hospitals. That has been a major factor in our ability to move forward into phase 1. And also the foresight that you had in creating this COVID-19 task force, which is led by Jim Murrin. We really appreciate that because their ability to raise upwards of $12 million to collect PPE has been an outstanding effort on behalf of the state. And on that note, the Vegas Chamber and all other chambers across the state are participating in your Stay Open campaign. I wanted to announce that we'll be working with the other chambers to distribute marketing posters that were procured and purchased and will be distributed by Clark County Chairwoman Marilyn Kirkpatrick. And then we're also working with Alex Dixon to receive those face coverings next week, which will also be making available to our members so that they can safely expedite the moving to phase 2, hopefully. So with that, thank you again so much for joining us today. And I would now like to turn it over to Chamber Chairman, Mr. Tom Burns of Cragen and Pike. Tom?
You bet. Thank you, Mary Beth. And thank you, all of you for joining us. In a few minutes, Governor Sisolak will make remarks about the latest information in Nevada about COVID-19 and his plan to continue to open safely the business and economy of the state of Nevada. Representing you at all levels is what the Chamber's top priority is, and because we know how much government can impact your business, especially in our business in these times like these. It is my honor today to introduce the governor of our state, Steve Sisolak. During these unprecedented times of COVID-19, Governor Sisolak has been an engaged leader, working with communities, healthcare officials, education officials, and the Vegas Chamber along with other business groups to keep our state open and safe for Nevadans. We are grateful for his insights that he will share on the latest COVID-19 issues and his plans to move forward and invigorate our economy. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Governor of the state of Nevada, Steve Sisolak.
Thank you, Tom and Mary Beth, for that kind introduction. I sincerely appreciate your words and the sentiment. It's a pleasure to be here with all of your members, or a lot of your members. I don't think I've ever been on a web call that's quite this big. And frankly, 6 months ago, I was never on this many web calls as I am now. I mean, whether it's with your group, with the national governors, or with the President's task force, my day is made up with IT folks setting up web calls for me. So I appreciate you organizing this important call to speak. I know there's a lot of questions for me, and I know we've got some time to take some of them, and I'm happy to answer those as best as I possibly can. But I want to express my gratitude for this opportunity and for your willingness and your help to get us through the time that we've had. And Mary Beth, what you said about the task force and Jim Murrin, I can tell you that these days it seems like this has been years that we've been in this COVID crisis, because the days all run together, and I don't know what day it is from one to the other, but I remember when Jim and I got together, and he offered to help me in using a lot of the resources of the chamber and your members and their contacts, quite frankly. It wasn't just the money, and they did raise a lot of money, clearly, but they had contacts in China that we didn't have, in Taiwan and Japan and all over the globe, and working with some of the mining companies to get some of the help us with our PPE. We got to jump on a lot of other states because of the resources that were brought to us through some great chamber members and our business community, which was very helpful. That allowed us to get personal protective equipment into our hospitals, into our first responders, and frankly, it saved a lot of lives, and we sincerely appreciate that. As I said way back when I gave my State of the State in January 2019, which seems like a decade ago right now, the way things have been running, businesses are propelling our economy, and we were on an enormous trajectory. And things were looking good. We're looking for the next session and how we're going to deal with being able to balance our budget and spend the money. But this pandemic caused unimaginable problems, and the impacts it had on everything from our businesses to our schools to our governmental entities. It required more of us, and it forced us to pull together and to get together on how we're going to deal with these situations. And I am thankful and I'm grateful every single day for the Nevadans that have stepped up to be part of the solution, not to be part of the problem, but to be part of the solution, offer their advice, offer their suggestions, and just try to help us get through this time. We are facing problems, particularly small businesses are facing problems that they could have never imagined. I could have never imagined that you would shut down. One day I would have to make the decision to shut down the entire strip and, these businesses, and that was difficult. That I know the impact it's had on small businesses, and I am confident we will be able to provide the energy and the resiliency for those businesses to move forward. I'm proud how Nevadans have reacted during this crisis. Together, they've managed to help us flatten this curve, and I can tell you that has saved literally thousands of lives. There's no doubt in my mind, had we not done this, we'd be in much worse position today. We will work to get the businesses and our communities back, but the way Nevadans have reacted have allowed us to flatten the curve the way we have. We have a downward trajectory in our positive testing cases. We've got an upward trajectory in the amount of tests that we give. We've got a downward trajectory in deaths. In the areas that we go by, the amount of ICU beds that are used for COVID patients continues to trend downward, and that's extremely important to us, that we have capacity for surge if we get one in the foreseeable future. So the community has worked with us to help that happen. And our first responders, state superintendent working on the education front with all 17 superintendents across the state to try to develop a plan, not just for this year, but for next year, how we're going to deal with education and trying to get kids educated and continue them on their educational careers. My team has been absolutely outstanding in terms of dealing with this entire situation. We work 12, 14 hours a day, 7 days a week, because there's always a situation we're dealing with, whether it's statistics and testing or unemployment or reopening or the phasing and those sort of things. And I can't thank my team enough, and I can't thank the chamber enough for being so cooperative to help us, to provide information, to be a resource, and we've used that resource, and I'm proud to use that resource and everything that you bring. So thank you for what you've done, for your time, for your dedication to Silver State. We're in this together. It's going to be a road back, but we have a pathway to get back, and I'm confident that we're going to be able to do that. And working together, we're going to make that all possible. And for all of your members and the chamber that have helped so much, they've helped feed the folks that didn't have food. They've helped with the businesses to continue. They've helped with the schooling. And if you got folks that are working from home, schooling their kids at the same time and helping get us our community back together. And that's what the chamber is all about. And it's been just a delight to work with you. And I couldn't ask for a better partner. I couldn't ask for a better partner than the Vegas Chamber. And I'm thankful every day for everything that you do for us. So with that, I'm happy to take a couple of questions.
Thank you, Governor. Now I want to open up the conversation with you for a few questions. Members on the phone may also ask questions.
Sure.
You can ask a question through the chat feature on the web or through the mobile app, and we'll read them back to the governor. Mary Beth?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also want to let you know, Governor Sisolak, that a lot of these questions that we're starting with have come from our members as well. So we appreciate your time today in taking these questions. We know that you've worked closely with governors of the other Western states, especially through the Western States Pact. How do you think joining this pact has benefited the state of Nevada, and what have been some of the key takeaways that have helped shape your policy decisions in your response to COVID-19?
That's a great question, and the Western Pact has been valuable for us. It's been extremely valuable. I know these governors from our different associations, and quite frankly, there were some selfish reasons at the beginning. There was an economy of scale in terms of purchasing that we were able to use with these governors in obtaining supplies. Governor Newsom is one example, sent us 50 ventilators when we were short of ventilators. We didn't have enough. We didn't have enough in our hospitals, and he had a little bit of an excess capacity. So we made a call, and Gavin sent some ventilators over. But they are a big tourist source for us. We get an awful lot of people driving here from California and Oregon and Washington and Colorado. And that communication, that line of communication is going to be extremely important as we start opening up the gaming corridor and get that coming back online, that we can get those folks and returning to Las Vegas and coordinating the openings as it relates to the stay-at-home orders and, you know, the 14-day quarantines we have. I don't want them quarantining the people when I want them coming to Las Vegas or, you know, to gamble and to vacation. So it's a communication exchange of information is what's been the most beneficial for us.
Great. And speaking of, you know, quarantining and opening and things like that, all of our members are so eager to be able to open. Do you anticipate or envision any new state programs that could possibly be offered to small businesses that would help them in additionally retaining their employees or helping them stay open with any type of additional assistance?
Yeah, we're working with Director Brown, who's been absolutely incredible. I know he's been in contact with the chamber. We did get a significant amount of CARES Act money that we're looking at working to develop programs. I am not as, while I'm excited about trying to recruit new businesses, you know, through GoAd and attracting new industries here, I'm more concerned, my immediate concern is for the present members and businesses that we have that have done and sacrificed so much, or whatever we can make available to them. I know that PPE was a great program, but a lot of people got cut out. They didn't get in on the first tranche, and then the second tranche, they didn't get in, and there's some concerns about the timing of that and how the money has to be expended. So we're definitely looking forward to working with the chamber and coming up with ideas that can really help the small businesses that are struggling at this time and coordinate resources, and anything we can do at the state level, I'd be happy to participate in.
Right, Governor, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about the economy, because that's public health is issue number one. Number 1A is probably the economy, right? And so what are your thoughts and plans on helping Nevada's economy recover?
Well, the economy definitely took a big hit. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, you've got small businesses that poured their life savings into their businesses and now need some assistance in order to get out of it. We're attempting to coordinate in a safe manner. We can bring back the economy, but we can't bring back the lives. And that was our initial reaction, our initial motive, to get that curve down for a couple of reasons. One is to save lives, and two is to make sure that we maintain a capacity in our healthcare facilities to deal with the surge. Thirdly, what we've done, and I've coordinated with the gaming companies, it's important that when visitors come here, when they start coming back to Las Vegas, to Nevada, they know that this is the safest place in the world to come on vacation. And we're going out of our way to make sure that when they see the numbers that are coming out of Nevada, that they go, geez, that's great. It's safer to go there than it is to stay at home where I'm at. And to make sure that there's a tracing effort in place, there's testing in place, that they feel that they'll be able to come here, enjoy themselves, and not take the virus back home with them. So we're going out of our way to make sure that that happens, and hopefully the businesses as a result will be the beneficiary from those actions that we've taken. So we come up with hopefully soon to open up some more of the businesses, we'll be able to get people back to work.
Great. Do you have a sense of when our economy will be back to pre-pandemic levels and how long that recovery will take?
Wow. I don't know how you could even begin, we could even begin to look at that. Frankly, in dealing with my health experts, I don't think there's any hope to getting back to where we were until we have a vaccine. I mean, you're going to need a vaccine where people are comfortable that they can get on a plane. I know my wife booked a flight and she was coming up here, and there's going to be 25% people occupying the plane, and then all of a sudden they combined 3 flights and it was booked 100%, and she decided not to come, and I don't blame her. People are going to need to feel comfortable when they get on an airplane and they check in a hotel in Las Vegas. Until there is a vaccine that they feel that they'll be immune, so to speak, from the virus, I don't think it's going to be back totally. We certainly won't get our international travelers back. In dealing with the vice president, the president on the calls, they continue to be very hopeful that we could have something late this year, early next year. There's 2 things. There's the development of the vaccine. Then there's the actual makeup of, 300 or 400 million doses of this that we're going to need just for the United States. So it's important that we stay out in front of that. A cure is nice, you know, whether you're using remdesivir or using some of the other things that are coming forward that these patients are being treated with. But I think you're going to need a vaccine in order to get some people to feel more comfortable. I know that some of the folks that I deal with regularly, I say, you're going out to dinner, they go, you know, it's just not worth it for me when you my age and you're looking at, you know, you're in that vulnerable group, 65 and over. You say, geez, I'll order in. I just don't want to sit in a restaurant quite yet. And I think it's going to take that vaccine to make that happen. But hopefully we'll be in a position to do that. And by the end of this year, we'll be pretty far along.
Okay, Governor, we've learned through this pandemic how important it is that manufacturing and supply chains, those are just essential to the stability of our community. The Vegas Chamber has been working with LVGEA in the South and EDON in the North. So how do you plan to use GoEd to leverage recruitment efforts to attract new manufacturing operations to Nevada?
Well, I think that this, if anything that good could come out of this, we could realize that our supply chain has been broken for quite a while. I mean, we were, one of the things I deal with on a daily basis is the acquiring of test kits and extraction kits to deal with this situation. And then to come out, find out that the swabs are made in a little town in Italy and made nowhere else is just troubling to find out. That I think it's proved some opportunities for some others that previously didn't exist. I think our culture will change. I mean, if you're looking at a business to get into, making N95 masks or a surgical mask is a pretty good one right now because they're selling about all that they can make. And I think that that's going to continue moving forward. We're going to have more situations. I think people are going to be more comfortable wearing a mask than they were before. And the need has come clear between the health districts, the responders, the hospitals, the facilities and so forth, that we need more of that. So I think we need to bring more of our supply chain back into this country. We exported a lot of that, and it's unfortunate it's not viable here right now, but I think that there are some opportunities we can learn from that. The same is true on the food chain, that we've realized that some of the folks don't get enough credit. When you look at the truckers and the stores, the front-end grocery store clerks that are stocking these shelves, I mean, it's shocking to me to believe that there could be a national shortage of toilet paper, but there was for months because we just didn't have the supply chains available, but they kept it going. And I think we're going to have to reevaluate and get a little more technology in supply chains and hopefully give some of the smaller companies an opportunity to participate in this.
Yeah. Governor, you recently declared a fiscal state of emergency for the state of Nevada. Can you share what that means for the state as a whole, how it helps local governments, what it means to Nevadans as a whole?
Yeah, the fiscal emergency, what it does is it frees up more federal resources for us. It gives us more flexibility with our state resources in order to be able to expend them in an efficient manner. I mean, some of this is difficult. When you're buying PPE, it's hard to go to interim finance committee and get orders. And by the time you do that, another governor has bought it out from underneath me, and then we can't buy it. So the fiscal emergency avails us of more federal funding. It avails us to use the National Guard more than we previously had, which has just been a heaven sent to be able to get those folks in here and help us to respond to this virus in the way that we did. So it was a matter of providing us with more resources and at the same time providing us with more flexibility. So that was the reasoning behind it.
Okay, Governor, I'm getting a lot of questions about this at the Chamber from our members. As a result of this pandemic, of course, this is clearly impacting the state's budget for 2020 and into 21 and probably well beyond that. Is K-12 education subject to the potential cuts as part of your call for state agencies to provide budget cuts and recommendations K-12?
Well, we're going to have a lot that we're going to need to look at when it comes to budget cuts. We tried to get out front early and let everybody know that, look, start trying to accumulate some savings in this current fiscal year because we're going to have to get in the next fiscal year. We did use a rainy day fund. We freed that up, and it's going to help us provide our funding through the DSA account to the schools and to higher ed at the same time. Education has been a #1 priority for me. It continues to be a priority, educating our students. I think they got kind of shortchanged with the distance education. Some districts handled it much better than other districts did, and we're more in line to handle online education and parental involvement than others were. That being said, when we get into this, we're trying to get some more money. We're talking about another tranche of money coming from the federal government, which would provide us some resources at the state level to fill these budget holes. Without that kind of money, we are obviously looking at an enormous shortfall in the next fiscal year, which will require the legislature to get together and determine how and when those cuts are going to be made. I asked for agencies to submit potential cuts and reductions in services, as it were. I do not want to make it, it's not going to be an across-the-board cut where everybody gets the same. It's going to be done on a case-by-case basis, but I don't know how we're going to get out of this without everybody participating, but we're certainly looking at any new potential revenue sources we could get from the federal government. This is not a time to be raising taxes, clearly, but if the federal government is going to have a package that's going to provide some resources for states, our unemployment is higher than anybody's because of the hospitality industry, and hopefully the government's going to realize that we're going to get some resources. I know I've been we have regular calls with our federal delegation. I've got one a little later today on my way back to talk about just that, what resources and flexibility can be made available to us in this situation.
Governor, throughout the entire pandemic, it's been clear that public health is your #1 priority. And I was wondering if you thought that would be a top priority coming up in the upcoming legislative session, and what you'd like to see us improve on throughout the state.
Well, public health is clearly a top priority for all of us, and we learned certain things from this. We've learned, obviously, about, I think, developing a better plan. For example, we've learned that the virus has been much more impactful with an elderly population. When you look at our nursing home, our assisted care facilities, our memory care facilities, our veterans homes, those sort of facilities have counted for deaths, fatalities. As a result of this, it's also been more impactful in some of our minority communities, and whether that's as a result of education, whether that's the lack as a result of healthcare being provided into those areas, as the availability of testing. We're looking at all. I know the legislature is looking at how to respond in a crisis like this and to provide more flexibility to make sure that everybody has equal access. I mean, when we got into statewide, some areas just don't have Wi-Fi. I mean, they just don't have access to internet learning. So kids are having to put a bus out there with internet access on it that kids can go to try to access. So we're learning a lot, and I'm sure that the legislature is going to be looking at a lot of these things closely as we move forward in the next legislative session, without a doubt.
Governor, I know a lot of businesses are having their employees wearing the face coverings. Everywhere I go, that's what I see. Is there any advice you can give to businesses, who have customers who may not be wanting to wear the face coverings to go into their establishments? And do you anticipate any mandates to that effect?
Well, that's a great question, Mary Beth, and that question comes to mandating of face coverings. I can tell you, you don't wear a face covering for yourself, you wear it for everybody else. And that's what I've tried to stress to them, when the virus can be spread from an asymptomatic individual to someone who is without the virus and they don't realize it, and then suddenly you get a super spreader spreading it to 25, 50, or 100 people. I understand. I don't think it's a matter of the face covering. I think it's a matter of people not wanting to be told what to do. That's why we did not make it a mandate. I know Governor DeWine, who's a friend of mine in Ohio, made it a mandate, and 3 days later, he walked it back because people were so outraged to be told to be wearing a face covering. CDC evidence has shown us that it does work to reduce the spread to other individuals, especially the people that are wearing it. If you're asymptomatic, obviously you don't know you have the virus. And if you're wearing a face covering, you're not taking it to someone else. If you don't wear it for yourself, if you think about wearing it for the other folks, for the front-end healthcare workers, for the people in the nursing homes, for the veterans and whatnot. I deal with the first responders, whether there are paramedics, our police and our fire and our hospital and nurses, our ER folks, and they tell me that for them, they want nothing more than people to wear a face covering because it does make a difference. And we're coming up on Memorial Day in a couple of days, and people are going to be getting together, and we implore them to please practice social distancing, house or anyone else's house, and wear that full face mask. I know some businesses have taken a pretty firm stand on this. Costco didn't, but then they did, and they were on one of our calls and said that they thought it was in the best interest of their employees. And I get that. I mean, when you've got employees that are there and you've got a bunch of customers coming through that aren't wearing face masks, it puts their employees at risk. So that's a tough call that businesses have to make individually. We have mandated that the businesses have face coverings for their employees, but they should make that call, and I encourage all businesses to encourage their customers to wear face masks and to practice the protocols of social distancing and then not gathering in groups to help continue to reduce the spread of the virus. So in an ideal world, yes, please wear a face mask.
Sure. If a business is following CDC protocol and phase 1 reopening requirements, local ordinances, what other suggestions do you have to recommend to them to protect themselves, their employees, their customers, general public?
Well, the best thing I can do is to follow those protocols. Those protocols are pretty specific when you get down to that. I mean, they've got actual cleaning protocols, the type of the devices, disinfectants or whatnot to use, how often things should be cleaned and or sterilized to keep people safe. The virus can only spread if we assist it in its spread. And businesses can do an awful lot to eliminate that spread or to reduce that spread. That's why when we case one, we tried to pick through the medical advisory team and our LEAP committee, with Chairman Kirkpatrick is definitely well involved with, and we speak regularly in terms of coming up with businesses to put in there, come up with businesses that would have less likely spread of it, the virus. For example, some of the massage parlors have more of a spread because there's human one-on-one touch as opposed to getting your hair cut. So it's all analyzed on a case by case. We use LEAP, we use a lot of our boards, whether it was a dental board, the cosmetology board, for businesses that fall under their purview, under their hierarchy, to give us suggestions in terms of how to handle this and to slowly work ourselves out of this and get people back to business. And I suggest that they follow, Tom, all of the guidelines that were put forth by my office, by LEAP, by our DHHS, and by CDC to come up with the best scenario. And then I believe that they can keep people safe and we can do well. But I think it's going to change kind of the way we do things. I mean, you're going to need a reservation where you didn't necessarily before. Those are helpful for if you're getting your hair cut, you might have to wait in your car and they might text you to come on in. It's your turn now, Tom. So those are the kind of things I think are going to change probably in the long term, which aren't necessarily bad changes.
Right. Can you share your efforts on getting adequate testing to the state of Nevada and maybe give some hints to our smaller businesses on how they can arrange for testing for their employees and to get access to that?
Yeah, I encourage testing. Has been a great thing. We had a pretty high, we were one of the highest in terms of the infection rate without being a hot spot. We were a little over 12.5% of the people that we tested were positive, which was high. We are now down to under 8% because we have greatly expanded our testing. And the Chamber's been a big part of that in dealing with UMC and Southern Nevada Health District to make sure that we have testing available. The Orleans was one of our big places in Southern Nevada that we're doing testing. I know they set their record, I don't know if it was Wednesday, Thursday this week. They tested, I believe, over 1,100 people at that site. And I went there to see that site, how it operates with the National Guard. It is truly remarkable. I know you can go online. They've moved that site over, I believe, to UNLV. Today's the last day, and at the Orleans, it'll be moving to UNLV. And you can just call and make an appointment and go in and get tested. They're using even the throat swabs, so it's not quite as impactful maybe as the nasal pharyngeal swabs that they were using previously. It's not as uncomfortable for people to do, but you can make an appointment, drive up, and it's so easy to do. You've got people on both sides of the car in the passenger seat and the driver's seat. They test them both. You move on. It's literally 2 minutes. It's absolutely amazing. And to get people through, it gives you a sense of comfort knowing that you're negative, you don't have it, and then if you continue to follow protocols. So I would encourage businesses to find out where there's a site near them. The hours are, convenient. I know they're open 8, 10, 12 hours a day, and they're open 6, 7 days a week. So if you can get your employees down there, it's something to take advantage. If their insurance doesn't cover it, there's no cost for the business. It's a free test, so it's definitely helpful. It's definitely helpful.
Governor, I'd like to turn back to education for just a moment. This comes up a lot at the chamber as well. If needed, who will determine if schools need to continue their distance education in the fall? And would that be a decision that would be made by you, the Nevada Department of Education, or the Clark County School District? And how would that process work?
Well, the Department of Education ultimately is one that's going to be making that determination with me. I've charged Joan Ebert, who's our state superintendent, to do that. She has been in regular meetings with all of our superintendents. I don't know if it's going to be the same for all of our districts. It probably won't be. We had a briefing this week, and you get into a lot of details here when you're talking about some of our classrooms in the Clark County School District, which probably is one that has got most interest for your members. There's no way you can social space in those classrooms. You just have too many kids in those classrooms in order to be able to do that. So they'd have to come up with a plan, whether that would be having them in so many days a week, dividing it in half, and kids come 2 or 3 days a week and they're homeschooled a couple days, whether or not it's expanding the hours of the school. You've got other issues that are of real concerns. I mean, athletics, I do not know how we could get people into a stand watching a football game or a basketball game and possibly social distance them. They're looking at that. We're looking at teachers. A lot of our teachers are in vulnerable groups, you know, because of their age, or they have an underlying health condition, and, you know, they're more likely to be susceptible to disease them in that situation. And then you've got whether or not ACT and SAT scores are going to be required to go to college. These are questions. Every state in the country is handling it differently. We are probably going to be handling it differently in different counties, different school districts in the state. But we're working with Superintendent Ebert, who's working with the school district to try to come up with a plan in order to be able to do this and make sure if you have homeschooling, distance, yeah, the kids have to learn something. It can't just be, you know, you're going to be homeschooled and nothing happens for a year. We got to make sure that there really is some good coming out of that. The children get a benefit as well. So while it seems, and we've got the same issue with our university system, our education, they're not concerned what they're going to do yet. I know California's closing all theirs next year. They've talked about, Governor Newsom told me, and I saw Notre Dame has already talked. They're having everybody on campus. So everybody's handling it differently, and Nevada's going to have to be involved in terms of the school district. We're talking to school boards. Hopefully they will have some input on this, but it could come rather quickly. We're looking at a little less than about 3 months. We've got to make a decision probably in the next 2 months or so.
Governor, can you provide us an update on your directive as respects to residential and commercial eviction, and when does that directive expire?
Okay, I lost you there. All I heard was, could I provide, now you flipped upside, there you go. Information on a directive, which one was it?
As respects to the eviction of both commercial and residential properties, and when does that expire?
Yeah, that in its current state will expire at the end of the month. We've gotten a lot of comments on that in our office. Want us to extend it. At the same time, I've got landlords who are telling me that there are individuals that are clearly taking advantage of it in a way that it was not intended, and that was never what we wanted to do. We're taking advice on that from some of the landlords have spoken up, and we're listening. And if you've got information you want to provide as it relates to that, but we're going to have to make a decision on that program as we move forward in the next 10 days. So it's important, right? We wanted to not have people evicted in a tough situation. At the same time, I understand landlords still have their bills to pay. They've got their mortgages to pay, and we're going to do what we can to help them at the same time. So if you've got some input on that one, we'd be happy to take it.
Right.
Governor, as we wrap up today's call, I know we're short on time now. We want to thank you again for being with us today. I want to remind everyone that the biggest chamber and all the other chambers are participating in your Stay Safe, Stay Open campaign. We'll have those posters and the face coverings this next week. On that note, are there some final thoughts that you'd like to leave us with as we contemplate perhaps moving to phase 2 at some point safely?
Yeah, and I appreciate the opportunity to be with you. And I want to talk a little bit. I'm going to forget that I got Tom and Mary Beth on the screen. I want to talk to the members for just a little while. And I was a small business owner, and I know what it's like. And I can tell you, I deal with a lot of chambers across the state, believe me, more than you can imagine. And the Vegas Chamber does a remarkable job representing their members. And we go to the chamber for input, for information, just like I asked on the eviction situation. That's where we get my information. It's difficult for me, as much as I'd like to reach out to 800 or 900, 1,000 of your members individually and say, what does everybody think about this? Time doesn't allow that simply to happen for me. So it has to be done through an organized setting. And the Vegas Chamber has done a remarkable job in being not just an advocate for their members, but being a resource for my office and my administration, because it's a two-way street. You are our conduit to your members as you talk about a campaign to open back up, and you get those materials out to the individuals. And I understand that you run into some pushback from some of the members as it relates to a situation that we put in place, an executive order, whether it's about a closure or wearing a mask. But as members, I can tell you, if you communicate with your chamber, sometimes, you know, I know members, when I was there, you pay the dues, you send in the check, and you maybe go to 1 or 2 of the gatherings a year. That's a big mistake. If you don't take advantage of the services that the chamber has to offer, you're really missing something that is beneficial, not just to the members and to the chamber, but to an administration, to any governmental body. It's just great to have somebody that you know that you can call, and not only will you give me information, you'll give me information I can trust, and you're never going to give me bad information or lie to me or tell me something that's an untruth. And that's pretty rare commodity when you're up here in Carson City. I deal with a lot of lobbyists, and sometimes they represent their clients to every end and just tell you what you want to hear. And the chamber's not that way. They tell you the good and they tell you the bad, and do a tremendous job at it. I want the members to understand that it's a great resource that they have being member of the Vegas Chamber, and I will continue to work with you, and we'll work with you as we move into phase 2 and 3 and get gaming back opened up. And I promise to work as hard as we can to get this economy back on track and get people coming back to visit Las Vegas. It's the greatest place in the world to have a vacation, an experience, and I look forward to working with you into the future. So thank you for having me today.
That's great. Thank you so much, Governor Sisolak. We appreciate all your service and your work, and we appreciate your time today. And as always, when the chamber and all of the chambers can be of service to you, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And if anybody needs any information, visit our website, vegaschamber.com. Chairman Burns, any closing remarks from you?
I just wanted to say thank you to the governor. You've been very generous and gracious with your time. We appreciate your service to our state. Please travel safely.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay a member of the Vegas Chamber. They do a lot of good for you. Thank you all very much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Governor.